I'm Jeremy White, and oh yeah, it's snubbing season.
I'm Joe Marino, and I'm excited to see what this team can get done in the playoffs.
I'm the big O, Jerry Ostroski. Bring on the birds. This is the Locked On Network, and you're watching Bill Squad.
Who's ready, Bills Mafia? It's the Bills Squad. Everything Buffalo Bills, every week. Breaking down the big hits and game-changing plays the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. So gear up and squad up. The Bill Squad show starts now.
In Bills Mafia, it is the Bill Squad show. Jeremy White, Joe Marino, and the big O, Jerry Ostroski. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL bets all season long. Lots to get to on the way to our Bills-Eagles preview. We'll look back at the win over the Browns, what was good, what was bad. We'll celebrate a seven consecutive. Sorry, Jerry, I had you on the solo cam for a while there.
Dude, I was freaking out a little bit.
People ask for more FaceTime for Jerry. 7 consecutive playoff appearances for the Bills. They clinched their 7th spot. The DK Metcalf fan incident, the new stadium that's going to replace Arrowhead. So lots of NFL stuff out there I want to get to. But, guys, we'll start off 7 straight playoff appearances. We knew this was coming. But with the Colts loss last night, the Bills clinch again. And it's a pretty good life for a lot of Bills fans that lived a lot of years without the playoffs, just cruising to number 7 in a row. So bravo to the Bills and happy playoff Tuesday or whatever. Like, they clinched again, and it's great.
It's not lost on me, guys. I'm excited for it. It's always relieving to punch the ticket. And do I have a lot of concerns about this Bills team and what type of run they're capable of? Absolutely. But they're entering this playoff field with the best quarterback and the most experienced team by far. And so it might be a tough path, but I'm excited to see it. And after the drought, it's never going to be lost on me that this team is playing meaningful games late in the season and in the postseason. I'm excited for it.
7 years in a row is quite the accomplishment for this Bills franchise. I don't think anybody understands just how hard it is and how much luck you need to be able to have a run like that of 7 playoff appearances in a row. We all know the 17-year drought. I think everybody appreciates this. And, if you look at the power rankings in the NFL right now, I think this league in 2025 has the most parity that I've ever seen in the last 10 to 15 years. This is a league that's wide open as far as who can be that Super Bowl champion. And right now, the Bills have an opportunity because they got in. And I think that's the one thing you have to look at. Get in and advance and figure it out. And one thing the Bills have done this season, through all the turmoil, through all the question marks, through all the injuries, they continue. Sean McDermott, that coaching staff, this football team, finds a way to figure it out. And it might not always look like we want it to look, but they get it done. And congratulations to the Bills. Congratulations to the team and franchise. 7 in a row is a big deal.
Yeah. And, for this team, December is where they shine. Their record in December is awesome, always is. They find a way to win these games. We'll talk more about this for the Eagles game. Like, my pick for this week will be the Bills because they win in December, and they also tend to win at home this year. They've been a very strong home team. But, guys, looking back on the 7 playoff seasons, the 6 before this, I thought we'd have a little exercise here because let's maybe break it down the way that Brandon Beane sometimes does. One of his famous quotes, and who knows how much he adheres to it on a yearly basis, if it's every year, but he says, when you lose your last game, you usually find out like what you were missing. And if we go to the start of this playoff streak, that is Houston, right? They lose to Houston. And we think, well, Duke Williams got 10 targets. They need a number 1 receiver. They go out and they trade for Stephon Diggs. The next year, they go to the AFC Championship game. And what's our general thought on that? Just a little too early? They weren't supposed to be there just yet. A young team that needed to take couple more steps.
I'd agree with that. I remember watching that game, and the Bills actually got up to like a 10-0 lead, and then the Chiefs just poured it on. And you could appreciate in that moment, they're just not there yet. They're not on that level as the Chiefs, and so it was an experience thing for me.
I think the biggest thing right now, and I agree with that, they weren't ready as far as experience, kind of like what we had 2 weeks ago when we went to New England and faced a young New England team with Drake May, a team that didn't quite face adversity yet, didn't know how to win those types of games. One thing's for sure, even though we have deficiencies roster-wise, this is a strained football team that understands adversity, understands these situations in the playoffs. I feel very good as far as our experience goes moving into this playoff season where, this team understands what it's all about. There's nothing that will shock them.
Yeah, one thing that came out of that game, Joe, you remember, you're right, they were up 9-0, and they got down 21-9 fast, and McDermott kicks a couple field goals, and that's kind of the genesis of the start of maybe this coach isn't up for it. The next year is 13 seconds, which is its own show. I feel like we got that's over there, right? Like 13 seconds. They add Von Miller. They decide they're gonna try and close out, get closers. Cincinnati. They lose to Cincinnati. A lot of that is what? Emotional fatigue. It's a weird year. The Hamlin incident happens. They're just kind of disjointed on offense. It's just they just decide. I don't know what their autopsy was, if we can remember specifically. It just felt like something broke apart inside the team mentally at that point.
Yeah, I remember the pass rush wasn't there. And the D-line, obviously, I think Daquan Jones came back from like a pec injury, and they were banged up, and they're going up against the Bengals offensive line that had some backups in there, and they just really couldn't affect Joe Burrow. And I remember that being a game where I just was thinking, boy, they don't have the pass rush, and they played a lot of soft coverage, and Joe Burrow just diced them up left and right. That game was probably a little closer than the score. The score was 27-10. It felt like it was worse than that.
Yeah.
I also felt that Bengals team they had a little bit of Bills in them where they got up for that game. I mean, it was talked about for a while. I mean, everything was geared towards that Bills game, and you saw it on the field, and it just was an onslaught from jump.
Then it's a loss in the divisional round to I want to say like the A.J. Klein game where there's so many injuries. They run to the finish with Joe Brady jumping in for Ken Dorsey, and they look strong, but they lose to the Chiefs here in Buffalo. That's a year where it's, all right, this is where they start to turn into what they are now, right? As the Joe Brady offense, it had a half a year. It worked well. They kind of decide to go all in on it and run the ball a little bit better. And, of course, that's led to some great success over the last couple of years. But it felt like that game, the decision to come out of it was to lean more into the run, to lean more into Brady and those kind of game scripts.
Yeah, they were such an inefficient offense that year, right? Everything was a lot of down the field stuff. And then in that particular game, they had a lot of missed opportunities down the field, drops, missed throws, and that wound up killing them.
I think the biggest thing between the two offenses was, I think now, even though a lot of people want to see some things different, at least there's a system and there's a means to the madness, right? You understand what the Bills try to do week in and week out. Even last week in a game like that, where they were, they basically, and I feel a little bit better after watching that game. It was kind of almost like a preseason game. Not a lot of game planning. Take what you get out, get the W, and go home. But, with Dorsey, was almost like we're just drawing up plays to try to scheme people open with no rhyme or reason. And then Brady shows up, and you have the running game that comes to the forefront, and that is the marquee piece of this offense now as we roll along. Then
there's last year, AFC Championship game. They lose to the Chiefs. Their defense gets kind of worked early. Christian Benford gets hurt. And I feel like, the autopsy on that team, we can use the words of the GM himself. It's the defense. They felt their defense is a problem, needed more pieces. Makes sense, right? Over the course of these last 7 years, there's been an early window and then the transition. And now here we are maybe in the second window. So that brings us to today. And I don't really want to say, if they lose, what will it be? Like, we'll have time to discuss all that. But it really is a lot of the same couple issues, though, right? Like, defensive line has been something that they've been chasing. They've been chasing an elite defensive line. They've rarely really had it. And I wonder if we feel like this Browns game, these last couple weeks, are there signs of life? Like, are the things that have gotten them beat in the past that might be pass catchers and a complete defense? Like, what looks like it might come together so that year 7 isn't like years 1 through 6?
I think it's defensive line impact for sure, where whether it's being consistent, defending the run, and being sound up front, not getting displaced, particularly at defensive tackle, or do you have enough pass rush consistency to get those negative plays, force those hurried throws, and get the takeaways that you need defensively? I just wonder if it's going to be able to show up in the playoffs. It can at times this year. They've had some really good situational moments, and hopefully that can carry over. But on a snap-to-snap basis, I do worry about that defensive line getting worked.
I-
Really the front. It's probably the front,
Yeah.
you know, to the linebackers as well.
I agree 100% with you, Joe. I think I gives the linebackers a little bit of grace because they are playing in a unsavory environment, being that we do not keep any offensive linemen off of them. I mean, they've got guys in their face immediately. So when you've got undersized guys that are relying on speed and athleticism, and all of a sudden within half a second somebody's up on them, it's hard to function in that world. So I give them a little bit of grace. I think we figured out enough things in the secondary that I think we can cover. I mean, I think Maxwell Hairston has been a good piece for this Bills defense in the man area. I mean, he didn't play a lot of snaps last week, obviously bunch of zone, but we can do some things in man, matchup zone, those types of things. But again, I think I agree with Joe, that defensive line just, you know, through injury and just, you know, young guys trying to figure it out is too inconsistent right now to really hang your hat on anything up there.
What can they try, right? We've talked about this defense and how in games they're just throwing everything they can, make a second half adjustment, and it's a lot of blitzes, or it's this or that. You know, if it's Matthew Judon finding something because he's here, or it's Ed Oliver getting healthy, like the road to them finding their fully productive defensive line, what does that look like for you guys? And can they get there by January?
I think my thing is, when I look at schematics of this defense, what I'd like to see out of the front is more movement. I don't think they handle double teams very well. When you have young guys like TJ Sanders, you have a young guy like Deion Walker, who's shown he makes flash plays running down the line of scrimmage, being lateral as opposed to taking on double teams and fighting off one guy to get to another, whatever. I think I'd like to see more movement up front, because what movement does is it puts those linebackers then in specific gaps, not as much guessing on their part. They know which gap they have because the front's moving at the snap of the ball. I would like to see more movement up front out of the defense, and kind of take away the trying to play doubles and things like that, because right now they just have problems doing that consistently.
Yeah, I think that's a good call out. They struggle with that. It was kind of nice to see this week between Mathis and Sanders. While they got displaced, you could see them getting down on the knee trying, right? They're trying not to get blasted,
Right.
which was a bit of an improvement. But I think my optimism for it comes from the coaching staff and how they have been able to figure things out on the fly. And they're going to need it moving forward. And how can they maximize their chances to get stops, maximize their opportunities to get some takeaways? You know, I think it's been the game plans, it's been the adjustments with it to overcome some of what they're lacking. And so I think leaning into that and trying to optimize your talent, right? I think that's what it's going to come down to. It's a tough challenge, but they've shown they've been able to do it more times than not.
Allow me to be the optimist here, but I want to ask you, is there any way TJ Sanders could really boost what they've done? Joe, I think you tweeted it out. We haven't seen him at defensive tackle since week 6, right?
4.
So more.
Week 4.
Okay. Week 4. So again, like, I'm not putting it all on his plate. I'm not saying expected, but is there potentially like, hey, the young guy they drafted is going to be put in the right position, and that might bring some returns?
It'll help for sure. TJ, I think there's a lot to learn in terms of processing and, you know, technique deployment at the next level, but he has the athleticism that's going to give him a chance to make some splash plays. And so if you can get him in situations where, you know, maybe have him shoot a gap, work him on a stunt, get him in a situation where that athleticism can take over, you know, I think you have a chance at some negative plays. And so getting him back in that natural spot, I think will be helpful. I thought he had some really good flashes against Cleveland. And yeah, I mean, it's unbelievably, it's been since week 4 that he's played D tackle. Of course, he had an injured reserve stint in there, but then it was how many weeks in a row where he's playing defensive end. Now that it's very unusual circumstances that an inactive Jordan Phillips and Larry Aganjobi is your path to get him on the inside. But I'm just glad he's there, because I think he's got more of a potential to be a playmaker on the inside than on the edge right now.
I actually think playing outside helped him a little bit, because it got him away from some of those double teams, and it got him into some single block situations, and maybe got him a little bit of confidence. And then you saw him this week, while he wasn't perfect by no means, he did show flashes of some plays that you hadn't seen in the past so many weeks. And I think, you know, a young guy getting outside, now granted, he doesn't understand how to play boot counter reverse on the backside defensive end position.
Don't expect him to, right?
But he shouldn't. I don't expect him to. And to be honest with
Yeah.
you, as I was informed by my college Division I starting defensive end son the other day, we were watching film. I brought him in the room. I said, "Watch Epinesa here. What is he? Why can't we play this boot counter reverse?" He's like, "Well, they shuffle squeeze everything, and that's the most difficult thing in the world to play boot counter reverse. When you shuffle squeeze, you got to box it on the outside." And I'm like, "Thank you. I stand corrected. That's why I brought you in." But yeah, I think that he's got a chance to do some things. Just has to keep getting experience.
Man, that's such a good point, because there has been an uptick in reverses coming towards the Bills, and that shuffle squeeze is exactly why I would do it too.
Yeah, they shuffle squeeze, and because you got to shuffle down inside, what happens? This is another week in a row where a quarterback comes out and just kind of leans into a dude, because that's the technique they're playing. If they box rush it or speed box it, which is where he is, they go straight up field, that takes that away. But then you lose some of the backside cut ability to play inside if you're a DN. So they got their advantages and disadvantages in both techniques.
Let me go hand up here. If you guys could explain a little more what that really means. Like, the Bills are seeing more reverses because of the way their ends play.
Yeah. So if you watched AJ Epinesa in this past game, he was in the game when they ran the reverse to his side, and you'll see a defensive end. He'll come off the ball, and when guys go away from him, he'll actually stay square to the line of scrimmage, and he has to shuffle inside, so kind of reduce that space from between him and the linemen that are going away, which then shortens the corner, right? So then when he does see reverse and has to go outside, he's outflanked by the quarterback or another skill player that's there to block him. What I mean by speed box is you keep your width, and you come straight up field and shut down to play boot counter reverse, but you haven't reduced the edge. Therefore, you don't get beat on those reverses. But the problem with that is, if it's a straight running play and they cut that back, now the space between you and the defensive or the offensive end of the line of scrimmage is a lot wider, and the cutback lane is there for regular runs. So they have advantages and disadvantages to both.
You'd want to shuffle squeeze against James Cook.
Yes. You damn sure better shuffle
you
squeeze.
Better, right. So that the Bills saved themselves a little bit on some cutback runs, but that, getting deeper than the deepest is going to make them better on BCR, boot counter reverse.
Bill Squad Show, giving you some real in-depth stuff and how the Bills are being played against, how they can game plan. I want to get to Joe and Jerry on the all-22 review of the Browns game, which was way more stressful than many Bills fans had counted on. Also, apologies on my behalf. I'm sorry for bringing up 6 consecutive Bills playoff losses like in the first segment. That might have really, there's some trauma in there, and we just kind of rolled through them. So sorry to, start your show with it, but wanted, celebrate the 7th in a row. So when we get back, what we learned from the Browns game, we got James Cook chasing after the rushing title. Can he run his way to that title? Can he run the Bills to the title? Plenty to get to here, and your Bills-Eagles preview. It's all coming up on Locked On Bills, the Bill Squad Show. This episode of Bill Squad brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel, NFL Sundays, move fast. One big play, suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot. A defense tightens up. Momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads, money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet the next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. Keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. We're back here on the Bill Squad Show. Jeremy White, Joe Marino, and the big O Jerry Ostroski. All right, gentlemen, let's dig into the Bills' stressful win over the Browns. They're able to turn Shedeur Sanders over a couple times. They got gashed in the run game a little bit here and there. Ultimately, they were a bend but don't break, and they did a lot of bending, right? You guys were upset in postgame about just how soft they played the Browns rather than, daring Shedeur Sanders to throw deep, which he's not very good at. So let's start defensively, what we got out of the All-22, what we saw from this Bills defense in the win over Cleveland.
I saw a lot of things that went favorably for the Browns that are not necessarily sustainable things that will get the Bills in trouble moving forward. I think you hat tip them on that first drive. I think the Shaq Thompson injury, and then you kind of had Terrell Bernard in some spots that maybe you didn't want him to be, and he gets sucked up on a play action fake. Like whatever, you had a good script. The Bills are bad on the first drive. You hat tip it. But then from there, it felt like more than anything, it was the Bills' own mistakes that led to Cleveland offense more than Cleveland going out and executing and dominating battles, right? It was missed tackles, 3 missed third down tackles on the same drive that leads to a field goal. You have Matt Milano. It's a 3rd and 16. He makes the play, but he trips the guy very unnecessarily. You get off the field. And so that's their 2 of their other scoring drives. And I just felt like in watching the defense, I think the Bills were really content to just play their defense, right? Like there wasn't anything game plan specific for Cleveland. They ran what they ran and said, we're just going to execute our fundamentals, and we just don't think that you're going to have enough. And so through that, I thought it led to some frustrations because the Bills, I think at their core, are a split safety defense that's going to play top down. And you're going up against Shedeur Sanders, who has an average depth of target in this game of less than 2.5 yards, has no threat of really executing the drop back passing game and ripping it down the field while you're still presenting coverage shells designed that are to take those things away. But ultimately, I think the Bills said, we're just going to fundamentally play our defense and we're going to be okay. And they were, minus a couple of things that I don't think are sustainable, complemented by some things offensively, miscues that, on plays that were there that made this game really, really tight in ways that it shouldn't have been. I think in watching the tape, I thought this should have been like a 35-10 game.
I agree with that. I think this was a throwback game for the Bills defensively, all the way back to the Leslie Frazier bend, don't break type aspect where, they went into this game figuring as long as we, Shedeur's not going to beat us downfield. We'll make sure we keep ourselves deep enough to keep everything in front of us. We give him 13, 14 plays, whatever it is. Eventually he's going to make a mistake and we're going to get off the field and not put unneeded stress on ourselves by trying to take chances and things like that. And like Joe stated, the mistakes were made, but the problem was they were made by the Bills, not by the Cleveland Browns too many times, and that didn't get us off the field. So again, I mean, it was very, after watching it, it had that very preseason feel to it, all the way down to the names on the back of the jerseys, especially when that second D line rolled out there. You're like, who, half the time it's like, who are most of these people? But yeah, I mean, I think that they knew this game plan going in, they knew exactly what they had to do to get the W, whether it was by 3 or by 30. And, a couple of caught passes here and there, it blows up even more. And, you just have to kind of look. I think it's probably the biggest story of this game. And Joe brought it up, is just right now we kind of saw it with our own eyes finally in week 16, just how much lack of respect that the NFL has for this receiver core and just what the Cleveland Browns did to take, playing defense and taking that away.
I want to get to that in a minute. We got a good question here. I think it could lead to a good discussion. It's about, here we go. Are we sweeping the opening drive defense under the rug and praising adjustments? Why does this continue to happen to start games? That's from Charles, who wrote this in. And I guess I want to ask you this question because, the offensive side, they'll script plays. And when that drive goes in, I kind of think the same thing that you mentioned, Joe, like tip your hat. Kevin Stefanski is a good offensive mind. He sees the Bills, knows where their weaknesses are. Is the opening drive always just advantage offense because they can tell you what kind of game they want to play while the defense is trying to predict that all week? And then over the course of the first half, you get a better idea of what they want to do that day? Like that's sweeping it under the rug, but is it the inherent advantage of the offense early in a game?
Yeah, I think that's kind of in its most simple form true. I wish that the Bills were better at maybe anticipating some of that early on so that they don't start every game down 7-0. And there has been several games this year where the Bills have started with a 3-and-out on defense. We don't remember them, right? But we remember when things go poorly, and that's kind of been the case lately. But I think the Bills, they want to come out, and I think they want to play fast on defense, so they play a very simplified look. And because of that, I think teams are kind of aware of tendencies and are able to scheme up some plays that are able to extend drives. I mean, they converted a 3rd down early in that series. And it's one of those, and all of a sudden a drive gets off, right? And so I wish the Bills were a little better at the beginning for sure, but I do appreciate their ability to adjust.
I think in this game, I think the most frustrating thing was the plays that were being caught and, that were successful being the stuff underneath, just the easy catches. It wasn't these, downfield complex passing routes. It was just basically dump off plays. You throw poor tackling into it. Then of course, the first drive, they go 8 plays, scored a touchdown. Harold Fannin had the in and out, the play action route. I mean, a lot of stuff that's not complex. It's just easy underneath pitch and catch because, again, we're dropping deep to zones to keep people in front of us. And, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing for me off this game was just the simplicity of what they did to go score. It was elementary stuff.
A lot of playing not to lose defensively, basically, or like people like to use that phrase.
But I agree with Joe because Joe laid this out during the week about what the script was to play the Browns, and we all knew that Shedeur Sanders is not going to be a throw the ball downfield guy. I mean, they're going to be huge chunk plays. Everything he's going to do is ball control, timing stuff underneath. And when they come out in the first drive, you saw exactly that, and we just let those things happen.
Yeah, I wanted the Bills to suffocate that offense.
Right.
I felt like that opportunity was there. And I think where Sean McDermott and Bobby Babich said, we hear you, that's awesome, but we're just going to play our defense. We're going to be fine.
Yeah.
And you've seen like in the past, the Bills would play a quarterback like Tua, and they would just make him look like such a clown by the way they would take away throws and blitz and really get in their face and stuff like that. And I was hoping to kind of see that. I think the Bills maybe said, you know what? It's week 16. We need to stay healthy on defense. We're just going to play. If we just play this game kind of straight up, we're going to be fine. And I think they were right. But through that journey, I think we got a little bit disappointed that it didn't look a little better.
And I throw this out there too, because I had this question for you, Joe, and I'm glad you brought this up. When you look at the skill set of our linebacking room, would you not think the strength of it would be probably playing some of these backs and short stuff and man-to-man and coverage? I mean,
Yes.
You got Milano that's a former safety that can run and cover. You got Bernard that can run and cover. Even with an ankle, I think he's fine. I mean, I think the strength of our defense is man coverage with our linebackers, yet we don't do it. We drop them out of the coverage zone, and that's what's frustrating to me.
Well, yeah, and so instead of triggering and capping routes, right, getting on top of things, they're getting depth and they're getting outflanked with width.
Right.
And now they're in a position where they're chasing, there's a leverage and there's a window situation. So yes, I would much prefer that they played a lot more man with their backers. But I think they want to get that depth. They want to squeeze the middle of the field, right? And then trigger to the flats and rely on your ability to cover ground and make a tackle. Where I think at times that's where you see some of those short passes. And then Kevin Stefanski did a really good job of scheming up checkdowns, not necessarily screens, but checkdowns. He had a pretty creative menu there, which to his credit, I think that's scheming around the limitations of his operation. But they had some really good checkdown plays.
Because we got into some issues where you try to triangulate tackles, right? When I say triangulate, your cornerbacks outside shoulder, safeties down the middle, linebackers coming from the inside out. So you keep these guys in a triangle when you're trying to get them on the ground. The linebackers were so deep and there was timing issues getting to the ball. A lot of times we had 2 down the middle and 1 outside, or 2 inside and 1 down the middle, and guys getting out on stuff because we're just the timing of it and all is not there because we're having to come from so far back to go rally to make these plays. It was funny. The fit and the mesh just wasn't right.
To the offense, speaking of man coverage, Joe, you shared a stat. I saw you tweeted as well that the amount of man coverage the Browns played and 1 high safety, like what that says about what they think about the Bills offense. So take us through that, and it'll, I think, inevitably lead to a conversation about what receiver grouping might be the Bills' strongest.
So the Browns played an unbelievably high rate of man coverage, an unbelievably high rate of cover 1, which is 1 high middle of the field close coverage against the Bills, like alarmingly high. I think it was 91% 1 high middle of the field close coverage cells and like 70-something% just straight up cover 1, which is basically saying we don't think you have anything at receiver. And, we're going to play with +1 in the box. We're going to clog up the middle of the field and dare you to throw routes to receivers outside the numbers. And like, first of all, that is Jim Schwartz. That's what he does. That's what he's always done. It was more than usual, but it's definitely a characteristic of a Jim Schwartz defense. And it is the right way to play the Bills. Like, I don't, like, for as disrespectful as it is, like, you should do that because the Bills are engineered to play offense differently, right? They're not a team that's going to be a high volume of throws to the perimeter. They want to win with formations, alignment, tight ends, running backs, slots, middle of the field. It's a different style of offense. So, what Cleveland is doing is daring you to play a style of offense that you're not necessarily built to play. Now, I think where the criticism should come in is, like I said on the 22 review, there should be hell to pay if a defense is going to play like that, especially when one of the corners, with all due respect, is Sam Webb, who's played on 5 teams and had less than 400 snaps of experience playing defense in his career entering this game. They're without Denzel Ward. They still said, you know what? We don't care. We're going to play our defense at an accelerated rate of man coverage and one high middle of the field close coverage. And so what is frustrating to me is that the Bills weren't in a position to make them pay for that, where you would just be able to have a receiver that could route somebody up in man coverage and just pepper that guy with targets and get them out of that. And I think there's a layer of this that is a Myles Garrett component, where the whole game was about making sure that Myles Garrett wasn't going to make a play. Joe Brady said it in his press conference. He says Myles Garrett wasn't going to get a sack. And they said, yeah, you kind of got one, but it's goofy. He said it. That's what they wanted to make sure. So I think Jim Schwartz called the right game. I think he did what he needed to do. But I think the complicating or the frustrating factor for me is that you couldn't make them pay for that. You certainly did what you needed to do. I think they played the style of offense that they wanted to, but when you get those types of looks, it'd be nice to say, yeah, okay, we're just going to route you up and pepper that guy with targets, and you're not going to be able to play that defense.
I think also too, you got to look at the game script. The Bills ran 26 offensive plays in the second half, right? 50 total. Weren't a lot of opportunities. You're trying to neutralize Myles Garrett, so you're not going to drop back a ton. You're limiting half the field with a lot of rollouts to the right, so 3-level routes to one side. But I will say this, they did scheme up some plays that were open, and they were dropped.
Yeah.
So in 26 plays, you're only going to get a few chances to probably do that. Knowing how you're playing to neutralize Myles Garrett, they had the opportunities, and they were let down by the receivers, not catching the ball or overthrown passes by Josh Allen after the foot injury, which I think did hamper some of his throwing in the second half. So there's a lot of that to look into as well.
You feel like Brandon Cooks is a little bit of bad luck right now, just a couple of high-profile drops, and they'll stick with him. I don't think he'll have a short leash here, but I could be wrong.
I'm happy he's available down the field. And there's your silver lining. He's got to make the play, though. And I think at some point you're just going to lose confidence giving him those chances. But it would be nice because he's the guy that's been available to make those plays. Like whatever, Elijah Moore, there's a level of disappointment there, but he wasn't open like that down the field. And so I like that piece of it. I mean, Brandon Cooks is a pro. I don't think he forgot how to catch a football. I'm sure there's a difficult component of stepping into a situation at this point, with all the newness and, being able to make the plays, but just catch the ball, man. And you're talking about a couple of games here recently that were probably closer than they needed to. And if Cooks makes those plays, you're, looking a little bit differently right now.
I think also too, you're not talking about a quarterback that throws a difficult ball to catch. He's not throwing uncatchable balls or throwing it extremely hard, or you're going from a lefty to a righty. I mean, this is a situation. This guy's been in the league long enough. You should make those plays. And like I agree. I mean, this is a guy that gives us options downfield. You got to keep him in there because the options are limited. But at some point in time, you've got to go ahead and you got to have a return on the investment. He's got to catch the ball.
Bill Squad Show. We'll get to James Cook, one of the Bills' 3 Pro Bowlers. Tell you some Pro Bowl names. Talk about some potential snubs as well. And running to the title. Can James Cook run to the rushing title? And can the Bills run all the way to the Super Bowl? We'll chat about it here. It's coming up here on Locked On Bills on the Bill Squad Show. This episode of Bill Squad is brought to you also by CarGurus. CarGurus, a chance for you to take a look. It's not confusing. It's exciting when you're car shopping. And with CarGurus, you get the confidence you deserve. They cut through the noise. You can actually see the best deals on the cars you want, because when it comes to a big purchase, you deserve the best deal. And CarGurus makes that whole process simple by giving you real information, real deal ratings, and more listings than anyone else. You can shop the way you want. Use CarGurus deal ratings to compare cars quickly without having to guess whether the price is fair. You'll love being able to filter by everything: mileage, trim, features. You're only seeing cars that actually fit what you need. The price drop alerts, that's a lifesaver. Get notified the second a car you're watching becomes a better deal. And the in-depth vehicle reviews help you understand what ownership looks like, not just how the car looks online. CarGurus connects you with trusted dealerships for a transparent and hassle-free buying process. With over 4 million listings, the most of any online automotive marketplace, you'll always find the best deal. Shop the way you want with the tools, data, and unbiased deal ratings that make it easy. Buy or sell your next car today at CarGurus.com. That's CarGurus.com. CarGurus.com. We're back here on the Bill Squad show. Give us a like and a subscribe. Happy to have you along on our midweek show. We'll, of course, have a post game for Philadelphia, the Bills and Eagles game after that game, and midweek as well. We do 2 episodes a week, a part of your Locked On menu, of course. So like and subscribe here. Happy to have you with us. Drop a comment as well. We'll get to the airing of grievances, and we're going to air some grievances of our own and some of you out there as well, as it's Festivus. Maybe one of your grievances would be the Pro Bowl. Josh Allen, Dion Dawkins, James Cook named to the Pro Bowl. Is there a case for anyone else having been snubbed?
Yeah, I think so. And here's one of my requirements. If you're going to say someone's a snub, you better pull somebody out.
Okay.
So my guy, Spencer Brown. I think Spencer Brown's been better than Dion Dawkins this year, and Dion Dawkins made it. But Joe Alt, I think Joe Alt's a stud tackle. There's no doubt about it. He's played 6 games. He's played 6 games. And I think Spencer Brown has played at an extremely high level. I think he's critical for what this rushing offense is, with his ability to, not only widen lanes, but get out in space. He's a tone setter for the best rushing offense in the league. I think Spencer Brown deserved an opportunity this year and get some recognition.
Exactly what Joe said. I agree. That's my guy as well. I mean, Joe Alt, yeah, granted, great talent. He's been hurt, hasn't played.
Spencer Brown.
Reggie
All
Gilliam.
right.
We got to talk a little Reggie Gilliam.
Yeah, no, I would. That's another one as well. Reggie, because Picard has been hurt a bunch this season as well.
He's missed 6
9
games.
Right. He's missed 6 games also. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's the other one I thought about. Reggie Gilliam deserved consideration as well. That's a good call, Joe.
I think it's interesting that the AFC Pro Bowl quarterbacks reflect the year. The 3 quarterbacks are Josh Allen, not a surprise, Drake May, and Justin Herbert. And I like all 3 for this. I mean, May's been great on a not perfect team. And Herbert, I mean, if you're watching the Chargers each week, this guy is fighting for his life back there. His protection is so bad, and they continue to get it done. So it lines up, guys, with the postseason field. Like, hey, no Lamar, no Burrow, no Jackson. And the Pro Bowl vote's the same. No Lamar, no Burrow, no Jackson. It feels right.
I think so, too. Maybe Trevor Lawrence has an argument. He's heated up so much down the stretch. But, yeah, isn't it weird? Like, no Mahomes, no Burrow, no Jackson. When you think about those 3 plus Josh, only 3 make it. So someone's always feeling like they're snubbed. But 3 guys out of those 4 rightfully not in the mix this year.
Yeah, I think the quarterbacks were right. I mean, I would probably say that Trevor Lawrence would be the other guy, maybe in the AFC, that could have consideration. But I think I like the picks that they made at that spot. I don't have any problem with them.
Lawrence, I mean, the last couple of weeks, then he goes into Denver and has another great game. He's been incredible. And it really lines up directly with their acquisition of Jacoby Myers. Like, Myers went into that offense, and that offense found another gear. And they've got a track at the 1 seed. There are a couple teams here that if they win their games, the Bills and Patriots are not able to chase them down. So, we'll keep an eye on that. In the AFC playoff picture, the Bills need to win to keep the pressure on New England. If the Bills lose, the Patriots beat the Jets, it's over. The division's over. So the Bills still need to run the table and get New England to lose 1 game to either the Jets or the Dolphins in order to win the division and kind of steal it out from under New England. Guys, on James Cook, Pro Bowl, not a surprise. He is on track to win the rushing title. He has about a 50-yard lead, give or take. He leads the league in yards over expected. He leads the league in yards over expected per run as well. And he's second in percentage of runs that include yards over expected. To me, we're finally seeing it. The offseason was a little bit of a debate. And, man, all year it really has been the James Cook coming out party, the James Cook show. And the all-22 of the run he had against Cleveland, It feels like you could pause it halfway through and say, like, no, this dude gets out for a touchdown.
I mean, there's multiple times in this Cleveland game, there's two guys standing in the hole waiting on him, and he gets both of them to miss and rips off a big run. I said this before, and I'll say it again. The thing that amazes me is you look at this Bills offensive line, and every week there's a couple new wrinkles in the running game. This week it was the toss sweep, where they haven't really run a true sweep look. I mean, we saw some of that against Carolina, but they brought that back in, and then they ran some double pin and pull stuff inside. No matter what the blocking scheme is up front, James Cook fits it perfectly. And that's something that's very, very hard to do for a lot of backs. You get backs that are really good zone runners or really good gap scheme runners, but you don't get somebody like a Cook very often that can fit and understand. That's the biggest thing, is he understands the leverage of the play and where it's going to be before the play is run, and then has the God-given ability, if somebody's there, to make a miss. I think that's the thing that's most special about James Cook. You watch this Bills offensive line change up blocking schemes one after another, and yet he fits perfectly every time. And that's something that's really, really special and really hard to do.
I love that. It's so unique. It's not a real talking point. Nobody ever says stuff like that, where the rushing scheme is so diverse. It looks different week to week. And no matter what type of plan they have, he executes it at an extremely high level. In fact, you hear more often than not, hey, we have to tailor our run scheme a certain way to fit our back. James is comfortable with however the Bills want to attack a front. I think my favorite thing about James Cook this year, outside of just, I think he's literally incrementally improved every single season, but it feels like there's an ownership that he's taken in this. Not just, that, hey, I'm a good running back and I want to produce, but I feel like there's a leadership component there. There's been a consistency. You're never worried about him coming out and, if he's going to run behind his pads and, have some intent with what he's doing. He has embraced everything about what it means to be a franchise running back, and it's been really cool to see that evolution.
Well, Sean McDermott, I was going to say, Sean McDermott verified that yesterday when he was asked a question in the press conference. What's different about this year than last year? And he just said the look in his eye every day when he walks through the door. The intent and the deliberateness of his preparation and how he is, it's different. And obviously he's happy. And I'm very happy that he's happy, because that makes everybody happy.
I've got the full quote here, Jerry. You're good to mention it here. McDermott says, I'd say the week-to-week intensity is even different than last year. He's had some big games last year, but the look in his eye each week, the intensity he shows up with, it's really been influential on our whole football team. The guys see that, and that's kind of a little bit unique for a running back position, a player to have that type of impact on the whole team. And so it's been really good to see very few people work harder than him. He's on the sideline going over to the defensive guys and encouraging them and challenging them, and they're kind of doing the same. Josh is doing the same, and that's leadership at the highest level.
Every week he does it, right? 9 100-yard rushing games. He's been over 100 scrimmage yards in they played 15 games, all but 3, so 12 out of 15 games, over 100 yards from scrimmage. And more you're hearing opposing coaches saying, yeah, we got to take care of 4. That's what Kevin Stefanski said coming out of the half. We got to take care of 4. And so now you're in this world of teams are saying we have to take that away. They're playing cover 1. They're putting their +1 in the box. And the Bills invite some of that too with their formations and heavy personnel, but it doesn't restrict James Cook from producing, despite him being the guy in the arena that other teams are saying we better take that guy away.
Yeah.
Well, 2 games left. Is he going to win the rushing title? He's got the Eagles this week and then the Jets. And I wonder what you think about each of these matchups. The Eagles, of course, known to have some pretty nasty dudes up front. Can the Bills lean into their strength? Will they be able to run it against the Eagles?
Well, I think one of the interesting things about James winning this rushing title is going to be the result of the Eagles game. If the Bills win that game, they're going to stay alive in the division. If they lose that game, well, then they're in a position where they might want to think about treating week 18 as an actual bye week, in which case you're not going to pound James Cook. But if they're alive, then I expect them to go out there and, make sure that the pressure remains on New England. So I think that's kind of the first piece of it. But if the Bills are playing to win the next 2 weeks, I think he gets it done, especially as Indy's become very much about throwing the ball, right, with Phillip Rivers and the timing and getting the ball distributed, through him. The rushing production's kind of declined a little bit. And of course, not having Daniel Jones and that dual threat, right, their zone read stuff was a notable part of their offense. I think that's taken away from some of the big plays that John Taylor's hit. So it'll be Taylor or Cook. And if the Bills are playing to win the next 2 weeks, I think Cook gets it.
This will be a really interesting week in Philly as far as this goes with James Cook in the running game. These are dudes inside. I mean, these are dudes. Stroud's a dude. We'll see if Jalen Carter is going to play. Now, supposedly he's trending to play this week. These are guys who can stop the run on the inside. Guys you can't really move easily. Baum has done a great job lining up behind those two and getting clean and making plays. So I'll be interested to see how Aaron Kromer in this offense attacks it. Is this going to be a C-gap week, another toss sweep week where they try to get outside first before they get back inside? I think it'll be a good chess match between Fangio and Brady and Kromer and how the Bills tweak this run game this week, because inside the tackles, this group is money up front with Philly.
I think they're going to attack the edges. Outside of Phillips, they're a little small on the edge. Now, they're explosive. They got some really big-time athletes in Hunt and Smith, but I think you could maybe see a little bit of that Panthers style to attack the edges with some of that zone toss potentially, because, running up the middle against Young and Davis and Carter and two good downhill backers, Reed Blankenship's a good tackling safety. I think the edges is probably going to be the way to go.
But I think you'll also real quick, I was going to add this. I think you'll also see this will be a group that has trouble. This Philadelphia group likes to play aggressive. They'll have trouble shutting down and slow playing the backside cuts as well. They're going to try to get to the football and rally to the ball.
Yeah.
So you can see some of that as well.
I was going to ask basically this, like last week it's Jim Schwartz, a guy that's seen a lot, and he plays the Bills a certain way. This week it's Vic Fangio. Does he have more horses on that side of the ball? It looks like Nakobe Dean is iffy, which is big. He's got a hamstring injury, but what does a Vic Fangio defense do? Like when you got a coordinator that's been around that long, does Joe Brady go in knowing a lot of, here's a buzzword we've used a lot, guys, tendencies? Like what's a Vic Fangio defense do to an offense like this one?
Zone match, right? That's the whole thing with Fangio, zone match coverage. And so they're going to disguise, they're going to play zone, and they're going to match. And so you need to have routes that are moving horizontally through zones. You got to throw some routes with anticipation. But the good news is you're going to get box counts, right? Like he's not concerned with being +1 or even in the box. He will give you light boxes. And so does your personnel dictate them into some looks that they don't really want to be in, and you take advantage of that? But in the passing game, it's zone matched. I mean, that's Fangio. That's why he is who he is. And I'm curious to see what type of schemes Joe Brady has cooked up for it.
And if you see it, if they have one weakness, it would be they've been searching all year for better play out of their cornerbacks. So that'll be something that maybe,
well, the one corner, right? Jackson. Mitchell's pretty good. DeJean's pretty good. It's the other one.
Well, they wanted Darius Slay, right? They didn't get him. They didn't get him. Bills, Eagles. And then let's do the other side, like Eagles offense against this Bills defense. You guys mentioned in post game of our Browns show that Saquon Barkley is exactly the kind of back the Bills should be afraid of, because obviously he's one of the best, but contact balance, the way he spins, the way he's always going to get a couple of more. Like, is it a real concern how the Bills will be able to stop this guy?
Yeah. Especially they're going to get Lane Johnson back this week, which is just massive for their offense. And, I don't think Saquon Barkley's having a good season. He's not. I can give you a million metrics to tell you he's not having a good season. But the one tendency with Saquon, even going back to his time at Penn State, is he's not a very decisive runner. He's actually a guy that kind of searches for some big plays. And against some teams, that's going to be a problem. Against the Bills, it's really not going to be, because the Bills are not very good at deconstructing blocks and getting off of them, that it's going to give Saquon those extra ticks that he wants to be able to kind of see those creases and go. And then once he gets going, he's Saquon Barkley. He's 6 foot something, 240 pounds, and he doesn't make sense with his height, weight, speed, elusiveness combination. It doesn't make sense. And when that can just take over, that's a problem. And I do get concerned about those moments being there for Saquon. I think a lot of teams would probably look at this Eagles rushing offense and feel, we're fine. We're fine. We'll build a wall. We're fine. And the Bills don't build a wall when they defend the run.
And the other thing is, pass rush wise, if they get Lane Johnson back, which I think they will, that's not good news, because you put him on Bosa. He's got a chance to lock Bosa up. And then Jordan Mailata on the other side, you got a rusher that wants to compress pockets. And if one thing Mailata can do is handle people that want to compress pockets. Now, he has issues against speed and athleticism and bend.
Bills don't have it.
We don't have it, and Greg Rousseau will have a hard time long arming and compressing Jordan Mailata. So with Johnson back, that limits the pass rush the Bills can get quite a bit. And we know that if you give, even Jalen Hurts can figure it out if you give him enough time. It's when he's got pressure and he's got to move. So the challenge is going to be there. I'd expect the Bills to have to blitz quite a bit this week to try to get Jalen Hurts off his spot. Can Hairston handle Deshaun or Smith?
Devontae Smith, yeah.
Devontae Smith, and then I wanted to say Deshaun Jackson. But Devontae Smith and then also Brown with, probably see Benford there. It'll be an interesting matchup.
Yeah, I think you got to blitz this week. And Jalen Hurts is not the best at figuring things out when he's hot.
No.
So force him to do it. And I kind of like some of the Bills matchups. Like I think very highly of A.J. Brown. I think Christian Benford's kind of like the exact type of corner to match there. Devonta Smith is the route him up guy. And, I don't know that Trey White's going to go one-on-one there, but might be a little bit more Max Hairston to handle that. The Bills have done a good job all year on tight ends. Goddard's a good player, but I think the Bills can maybe handle that matchup. And it's such a defined offense. Like, that's it. They play 3 receivers, 1 tight end, 1 running back. Those are the guys that get the ball. And so I think that helps you kind of laser in and play your matchups. But you've got to find ways to heat up Jalen Hurts, because I know he's a Super Bowl MVP and he has some like Michael Jordan moments, but a lot of times he really struggles with figuring out where to go when he's hot.
And the Bills have been pretty good at, flustering quarterbacks in terms of coverage, especially in second halves. Yeah. Follow-up question on Smith, and if it's Tre'Davious White or Max Hairston. Surprised we're not seeing more of Hairston. The snap count was pretty low against Cleveland.
I asked the same question to Joe. Go ahead, Joe. Zone versus man, I would imagine, right?
It is that. But can we stop right here? Trey White's having a great year.
Sure. I just not saying like he has to be in. Right. I just wonder if you're a little surprised it's that they're bringing him along slowly, or if this is a game where you might see more of him.
I think maybe that backside run defense against New England that led to that explosive in the second half is weighing heavily in a game where you're just like, hey, we can't make mistakes. We don't need to give you any advantages. I think they wanted to mitigate that some. But obviously, when they wanted to, they put him on Butte and matched him up, and he took that away there in the second half. And so I think they're being a little bit specific and, opponent specific, game plan specific. And I think you can see some of that skew towards Max this week, but I think they wanted to reduce the variance, which is why you've seen Jordan Hancock phase out of the defense. I mean, only so many times, like I hear you, the young players, they got to play, but only so many times they can hurt you before you're like, well, maybe they're just not ready.
I think the best news for the Bills going into this game is with A.J. Brown. There's been a ton of chatter, obviously, fan base, player base. A.J. Brown wants the ball. The receivers want the ball. I think Devonta Smith probably lets Brown chirp for them a little more. He's a little more diplomatic about it. That, to me, is the best thing that can happen to Buffalo is for Hurts to have to force the ball to one of those two. I hope that happens, because I think cornerback-wise, like Joe said, I think we match up well. If we have to play Hairston, you got speed for speed. You got size for size. I mean, those things work out well for us. Yeah, please don't give Saquon the ball. That would be the best thing that could happen to the Bills was, they want to feed the receivers this week.
I think I like to say about this game this week, Bills-Eagles, is it's the two teams that are good and their fans freak out that they don't look better. Really. I mean, that's what this is. Bills fans, I'm one who does it. Eagles fans, they won the Super Bowl, and they're over here saying, why do we look so terrible? So maybe it's a rock fight. Maybe it's a shootout. When we get back, I want to get to the airing of grievances and a whip around the NFL. I want to ask you a couple things. The DK Metcalf story is a big one. What happened between Pittsburgh and Detroit, in Detroit for that game. So we'll get your guys' thoughts on that before we close out, and some comments as well. If you want to drop them in, we'll see if we can mix some in. It's Jeremy, Joe, and the big O, Jerry O, here on the Bill Squad Show. We're back here on the Bill Squad Show. Got a good comment here you guys will like. Somebody pointed out maybe a big day for Milano against the Eagles. Do we see more odd man mirror, Milano sack, Milano sent late? He looks fresh right now, 5 years younger, at least in the last month, right? Training camp was how young he looked. Then in the middle of the season, a little shaky. Now he's back to looking like he's 5 years younger. So maybe a big game for Milano. We'll see. All right. NFL news, airing of grievances. a thought on the DK Metcalf 2-game suspension. He gets into it with a fan. The NFL's investigating. He's going to appeal. He appears to punch or shove the fan that's leaning over the railing. I don't know if you guys have a thought to offer. I've got a potentially hot take on it. 2-game suspension is fine. I want lifetime ban for the fan. No longer allowed at the stadium. I have no space for your actively chirping a player to get him to come talk to you. You're a loser. Get out. There's no place for it. So you want to say Metcalf can't do that? That's fine. I want the league to be more aggressive on a fan like that. Just no place for it. Just go away.
I agree 100% with that. DK Metcalf cannot put his hands on a fan under no circumstances unless he comes down or does something and grabs him first or does something like that where he has to protect himself. You cannot put your hands on a fan. But I will say this. If you're going to say something to people like that on the field that you can't say the same thing to them on the street corner, all right, without ramifications happening, then you should keep your mouth shut. And I would like to see the league handle more of that. I mean, this is a repeat offender with DK Metcalf. It's been known that he's had run-ins with him before. He's a problem. I understand. Believe me, I have no problem walking into Foxborough Stadium and them chanting that I need to eat more salad, okay? I have no issue with that. There's things that just comes with being on the road and stuff and everything else. But while DK cannot put his hands on that man, there has to be something as far as – and, I'm not saying go as far as the NBA because the NBA stuff is soft to me. There's some guys that complain and throw him out. He called me names, whatever. But some of this stuff is ridiculous. And if you're not going to say it to him face-to-face on a street corner, you don't need to be saying it to him in a stadium either, a stadium setting. Just because you bought a ticket, I have an issue with that.
I agree with everything that you guys said. And so the angle that I feel compelled to take is, can we just behave better at football games as humans? Why is every societal norm just thrown out the door when we go into a football game and we put on our team's gear? It's a frustrating experience to attend a game because people are fighting around you. They're yelling at each other. They're screaming belligerent things towards everybody, right? And it's just makes for a not enjoyable experience. I want to watch live football. I want to cheer on my team. I want to have fun, right? Have camaraderie around people that are like-minded. But more often than not, I'm dealing with fights. I'm dealing with somebody crazy in my section that's screaming belligerent things, and that takes away from the experience. Why all of a sudden, because we get into a football stadium, do you have to act in ways that are just completely unacceptable in society? So let's be better. Let's enjoy the game. It's these people in costumes playing a game. It's not that serious.
Yep.
Have fun and enjoy it, and make it a little bit better for people that want to go there and just be a civil human being and bring their kids and enjoy a football game.
Yeah,
100,
I mean,
man, 100.
booing and rooting against him is fine. The thing
Sure.
I end up feeling is the Lions players don't think what you did was cool, man. They think you're a loser too. You got under DK Metcalf's skin. Congratulations. Your team doesn't want you to do that either. So, try not to make it about you. So, I don't know what the result will be, but hopefully he gets a healthy ban. Steve Young says he could maybe still play.
Let's see it.
Come on.
The Bills need a practice squad quarterback. Thanks, Jerry.
True.
I told you Bouchel plays for the Chiefs.
Right. Never wrong, just early, baby. Let's go. Come around the show team. We need someone to be Jalen Hurts literally today. Can you show up and do it?
Steve Young. Hey, what do you think about what Rivers is doing? That game on Monday night was fun, and I mean, I want to say it's like a movie script. You watch him move, and you think this guy can't play in the NFL, and then he throws for 260 and 2 touchdowns and keeps a competitive game. I feel like it's been a nice story, and if there's ever been a moral victory, right now watching the Colts is literally it's a moral victory. It feels good to watch.
Talked about it on the air today quite a bit on the radio. And first thing is, I think that Rivers is basically probably he's got a good chance of being a first ballot Hall of Famer because of this. I think the way he's come back and handled his business and what he's doing is big time. The other thing is this. I wish when this thing was over, he would go be a quarterback coach in the league, maybe work to a coordinator. I would take Phillip Rivers as a head coach. I would. I love his demeanor. I love what he's about. Dude's a stud, man. And the best part about last night's broadcast was Aikman couldn't control himself. I mean, he was out loud snickering watching him play, and I think it's awesome. I love it. And I think these are stories that we need more of in the NFL because sometimes that thing just gets so serious.
At the risk, I'm taking a risk here, gentlemen. I hope that this is going to land for everybody. And Jeremy sang on the show the other day, so I'll match you. You know this guy, right? This is our Colts. This is our team. We bleed blue. This has been a rallying, unifying thing for America, right? We're all behind the Colts, baby. We want to see Phillip Rivers go out there and play well. And it's been fun to see. He's got it between the ears. It's unbelievable. The guy's practiced 6 times in the last 5 years, and he knows where to go with the football. Now, look, when the ball comes off his hands, boy, that thing's doesn't have a lot of RPMs on it. You're wondering if it's going to get there. I feel like I'm watching late stage Peyton Manning, but you cannot argue with Phillip Rivers has given this team a chance 2 weeks in a row. And, obviously the season's getting away from the Colts, but this has been a fun story and I'm enjoying it.
Yep. Before we go, it is Festivus. We got our holiday. Wish you well for your holidays. Hope you have a wonderful holidays. It's Festivus, and with Festivus comes the airing of grievances. It's part of, what they do in Seinfeld. So, gentlemen, let it be the time. If you've got a grievance to air, now is the time. Otherwise, we're off to our Festivus, the feats of strength. I feel like there's a couple more things to do. Anything you're upset about, NFL, anything?
Yeah.
The Festivus, go ahead.
Replay assist.
God, it's terrible.
What is it? When does it come into play? We had a replay assist that converted a call into a safety, then replay assist took the safety off the board. Does anybody understand it? Please. I need to know.
My grievance would be this, and that's a good one. That's a really good one. Mine would be this. Just because you played football doesn't mean you can be a color analyst at a high level and call the game. If I never had to listen to J.J. Watt, there's a list that goes on and on and on. Just because you played football doesn't mean you can talk about it. And just because you played at a high level, dang sure doesn't mean you can talk about it. So please, can we reevaluate our choices for booth people?
All right. My airing of grievance.
Hey, come on. That guy's the worst. You know who was the worst? And with all due respect, James Lofton's the worst color analyst I've ever listened to. Ever. Yeah. He's not in the game anymore for good reason.
There's a lot of them.
This is where I tell you how bad I think Herb Street is, but that's just between us, I guess.
Oh, you know what? Said it. Did you say that the other day where it's like he doesn't let anything breathe?
Yes.
No, yeah. Nothing. Now I'm aware of that, and you've ruined it. So
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I needed to pass this burden on to others. I think he's actually bright and I think he's good. Just one moment to breathe on anything.
The problem is there's just too much of them.
Right, he's everywhere.
He doesn't have to call every college football playoff game, every Thursday night. There's just too much of them.
Yeah. Stuff to get
If a man needs to bring a dog with him because he's so stressed out for how much he's working, he's probably working too much, right?
All right. Yes.
Go home and play catch with your dog in the backyard. You don't got to bring him to the game.
I'm going to air one grievance also before we go. It's Pro Bowl based. Unless you can tell me what day the Pro Bowl is, what time it is, what events are happening in the Pro Bowl games, I don't want to hear complaints about who didn't make it. I get it. We like to celebrate our guys, and we want to see them get honors. But we all universally, A, hate the Pro Bowl, and then B, want our guys to go to it, and C, also don't want your guys to go to it because they're in the Super Bowl. Like, everyone's so crossed up about the Pro Bowl itself. What do you want, people? So there you go. There's my airing of the Pro Bowl grievance. Sure, if your players are good, I snubbed all of them personally, individually, because I didn't vote. I didn't vote for anybody for the Pro Bowl, which means I snubbed every single player in the league.
The part that I care about is the one that just happened, the reveal of who made it. After that, I don't care about a single thing. But there is the big thing about the Pro Bowl is the 5th-year option consequence.
Right.
And so, like, for example, Dalton Kincaid, he didn't make an original ballot Pro Bowl. When the Bills have to make that decision this offseason, that 5th-year option is going to be 1 year, $8.7 million, which if you made some Pro Bowls, it'd be a lot more. So there you go. Joe Walt, he makes the Pro Bowl as an original ballot. That's going to cost the Chargers, especially in a year where he played 6 games.
See, Bills fan, this is good. You don't vote for the first rounders to make the Pro Bowl.
Never.
You save the team money.
Yeah.
You know, let's take the opposite of a GoFundMe. It's like a don't fund him, even though we do want the guy to get paid. Yeah. All right. This has been the airing of grievances. Bills, Eagles, we got a pick here. I don't pick against the Bills in December, period. So I'm picking the Bills, even though when you guys were laying out those matchups, I got I got kind of spooked on it. Sounds like the Eagles are going to do whatever they want in the run game, and we'll see. But I'm taking the Bills in this game.
Yeah, me too. This is the only team left that Josh Allen hasn't beaten, right?
Right. That's right.
I think that's going to matter a lot to him. And it is the reigning Super Bowl champions, whatever you think of them. I think this is a game Josh Allen gets up for, assuming that foot's okay. And Bills at home. Put me down for a Bills win at home.
Same. Bills win at home.
All right. Bills win. We'll be back to talk about it, win or lose. Our post-game show following Bills-Eagles, which is a later kickoff, comes Sunday, and the Bills will need to win to keep pace. I should check right now. The Patriots and Jets play at 1 o'clock, and the Bills play at 4 o'clock, right? So that would mean that we'll know if they – well, yeah, it doesn't matter. They need to win it no matter what. If the Patriots were to somehow lose to the Jets,
we
would say doors open.
Door is wide open.
And then if you lose, that's a colossal failure. So
crash and burn. Yeah.
All right. Well, no pressure. Until then, have a happy holiday to you and yours. Everybody out there, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being part of having us be a part of your Bills coverage all the time. Happy New Year. We'll be back on Sunday to talk about Bills and Eagles. And until then, happy holidays. Go Bills.
Incredible banner, Jeremy White. I know you're excited to get that up there.
Yes.
Go Bills.
Merry Christmas. Much love. Go Bills.